What's going on, guys, and welcome back to GTA 5. So, a couple of new trucks were added to the game in the Cunning Stunts update, and this is one of them. It is the Desert Raid, the Vapid Desert Raid. A pretty awesome car. It looks a little bit strange, I will be honest, a bit of a strange looking car. I can't decide if I like the looks of it or I don't. However, it's still a pretty cool vehicle, and I thought I should check this vehicle out. So, interior pretty nice, fairly standard kind of race rally type interior. How does this thing sound? Yeah, it definitely isn't bad, so let's go for a drive. Now, this rally type truck, the Desert Raid truck, I'm not 100% sure if this is four-wheel drive or rear-wheel drive. I didn't check, sorry, I always forget to do that. I'd imagine it would be four-wheel drive, however I'm not really sure. This specific Desert Raid, this one is quite it's quite oversteery. I don't know if maybe it is rear-wheel drive. If so, that is probably why. It may also be the suspension. The suspension bumps around quite a lot with this car, going over jumps and crests and stuff. The suspension does get quite unsettled. And that is a possibility for the car being quite oversteery. Now I wanted to see how well this car would do over big jumps, so I went over some of these kind of dirt jump pile things to see how it would do. Also did a little bit of kind of, you know, not rock climbing, but dirt hill climbing, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, this was a very fun car. Good to chuck around. The speed is pretty decent, however not amazing. But yeah, going over jumps and stuff, the suspension really did cope with it. However, it would get a little bit of oversteer around the hairpins. Because of that oversteer, it was actually very good around the hairpins. We got around there pretty well. Handbrake turns, smack it around, and you'd be around there in pretty decent, with some pretty decent speed. I did also, there you go, manage to spin the car out with that oversteer. It is quite annoying, fairly predictable, however a bit annoying. Then I had a rather big crash. Yeah, that wasn't great. My door came off, so that wasn't very nice. But yeah, the Vapid Desert Raid, pretty cool car. Don't really know why I decided to park it up here, but there you go, the Desert Raid, a pretty nice car. I would recommend it. Like I said, a little bit too oversteery, however, a pretty damn cool car. Oh yeah, I may have lost it down a cliff. Alright, so the next vehicle is the Vapid Trophy Truck, and that is this. It looks pretty cool. This is based on, it's a trophy truck. These are the trucks that you see kind of racing around, and kind of your more traditional of racing rally trucks. Yeah, pretty cool car. I want to get this pretty similar interior. I think this looks a little bit nicer, but how does it sound? Yeah, once again we've got pretty similar sounds to the Desert Raid. So, this thing, not as oversteery as the Desert Raid, a little bit easier to keep on in a straight line, and I don't think the suspension is quite as bumpy and crazy as the Desert Raid, but it's a pretty nice car. Acceleration, speed and stuff feels pretty similar. Driving this around the corners was, I don't know, was it not? I'd say it was a little bit nicer, however it wasn't really as fun. With the Desert Raid you could really chuck it around, whereas because this had a bit more traction, you couldn't quite, you know, rip it around the corners like you could with the Desert Raid, but it was still a lot of fun driving it around. Going back over to this dirt jump, once again, this car deals with the landing perfectly fine. Maybe doesn't get bounced up quite as much or quite as soft of a landing as the Desert Raid, however it was pretty good. I mean, it was showing that it was a good car, you know, going over all these jumps and slightly crashing into a wall. Yeah, this car was once again pretty good. It dealt with the jumps very well. It was fairly good to drive, not too oversteery. So I mean, this is, I suppose, a slightly better car than the other one. However, once again, big crash. Yeah, not great. Managed to get back up again, and then instantly rolled it off the banking. Yeah, this car was cool. Going around the hairpins as well, you couldn't quite chuck it in the same amount as you could with the Desert Raider. However, it was still pretty good. I suppose in a way it was a little bit better because with the other one it would step out too much and you'd kind of come to a complete stop going around the corner. Whereas with this you could keep it a little bit more controlled. But anyway, that was the Vapid trophy truck. Once again, another Vapid. Both of these are Vapids. A pretty great car. Parking it up here again. Yeah, I strongly suggest this one. In my opinion, maybe a better looking car than the Desert Raid. But there we have it, the trophy truck. I bloody did it again. Alright, so now we go on to the drag race. The Desert Raid versus the trophy truck. I would be driving the Desert Raid while Tudor in the trophy truck. Off the line it's very, very similar. However, the trophy truck gets a sudden burst of speed, like they're pretty much neck and neck. And then the trophy truck gets a burst of speed, and it would pretty much stay this way through the whole drag race, coming to the end right here, and the trophy truck just about takes it, but it's only by the smallest of margins. Okay, so now we go on to the final part of the lap or the rally stage. I'm using the same rally stage that I did for the two rally cars, the Omnis and the Trapos Rally last time out. It is the same stage. So we start off with the Vapid Desert Raid. Around here, once again, what can I say? It was pretty good. This circuit of this rally stage, not too demanding. I didn't have too many big jumps and crazy stuff in here because I used it originally for the rally cars and they would get a bit too unsettled. These cars could probably cope with a bit more craziness than what is at this rally stage. However, you know, around here it did well. Chucking it around the corners was good. We're coming up to the hairpin here. How does it get around? We do go a little bit wide actually. I managed to just about correct it, but we did go a little bit wide. But the Desert Raid did very well with a 1 minute 16.60. The trophy truck would be the next car to go, and this was very, very similar. Like I said, you couldn't chuck this one into the corners quite as much as you could with the Desert Raid. However, it didn't really have any understeer. It just didn't have as much oversteer. And in a way, that was a little bit better. It was definitely not an understeer car. It was nice to drive, and yeah, it did feel. I mean, it didn't really feel any quicker. I mean, they kind of both felt very, very similar. I mean, when I get to lap times in a second, you will see that. But yeah, this car was really very good. I was impressed with it. Yeah, just a good car. This was the first time I was driving these cars out of the stunt races, so yeah, it was interesting to see how they would do. Again, around the hairpin, not running quite as wide at that time, getting a good run through. And the Vapid trophy truck did a 116.56. So that is it with those I've sounded very English then, didn't I? With those lap times. I am from England, by the way, so I'm not saying anything bad about English people. I am English. I'm just in Australia now. The trophy truck did a 116.56, and the Raid did a 116.60. So the trophy truck does take that one. But the Desert Raid, a very good car. Once again, I'm not so sure about the looks. It looks a bit weird, however, I think that's kind of one of the good things about it, because it's wacky, it's just a bit crazy and cool. And the trophy truck looks fairly simplistic, from what you'd expect from a kind of rally racing truck. It came first in the drag race, and also it came first with the lap time only just, and it is actually a slightly cheaper car, around about 100,000 credits cheaper, $100,000 cheaper than the Desert Raid. So yeah, I would say that the trophy truck would probably be the option. However, the Desert Raid is also a very, very good car. So thank you guys very much for watching. If you enjoyed, please go ahead, like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video.